Yeah. Oh. Got it. I muted myself.
Hey, so I just saw it, this is like yesterday when I was all games then. Yes,
That's not
Is to get the current map. Yeah, then they can go up from there. Yes, yes. And so, yeah, so there's no, back in those days, there's no outlet here, and there's no outlet. And I don't know where that came from, but it's there.
Okay, you guys, let's go ahead and get started. Yeah, thank you, Nora. I'd like to call our meeting to order at, what is it, 3:01 p.m. And we're going to do something a little different today because our esteemed speakers need to get on the 4:00 ferry. And so we're going to have the presentation first and then all the boring business stuff afterwards. So with that, let me introduce to you Izzy Rico, who's a PhD student of Aaron Peck, who is a professor at URI. And they are marsh scientists, and they have been conducting marsh studies just for the last couple of weeks, actually, on Block Island. And wanted to, because we spent so much time speaking about the high energy side of Corn Neck Road, I did want you to know that we are also addressing the low energy side. And this is, and the first step is doing the research to understand what's happening there so that if we do select some kind of mediation or some kind of technology that to mediate sea level rise on the CALM side, on the Great Salt Pond side, we would need this research to help us make the wise decisions about what steps we might want to employ. So with that, let me introduce Izzy and Aaron and take it away.
You got it, Izzy.
And you have to speak right into
Yes,
it and you have to eat the mic.
Oh, great. Perfect. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Izzy. Thank you, Judy. I'm a PhD student in my second year, working with Dr. Aaron Peck. And we're going to talk about today some proposed work looking at salt marsh resilience and carbon dynamics on Block Island, with some outlooks on restoration and blue carbon economy. And the current status is that this project was recommended for funding by Rhode Island Sea Grant. That's why we have a little asterisk, but it's pending national approval. So we intend to proceed with as many aspects of the project as possible, but some might have to be scaled back depending on what does come through. All right. I was going to read at least the first land acknowledgement really quickly, that the University of Rhode Island occupies the traditional stomping ground of the Narragansett Nation and the Neantic people. We honor and respect the enduring and continuing relationship between the indigenous people and this land by teaching and learning more about their history and present-day communities, and by becoming stewards of the land we too inhabit. And then I wanted to add this land acknowledgement from Block Island, an organization that works on conservation efforts that incorporate indigenous knowledge. Just recognizing that this is the previous stomping ground of the Minissean people. All right, let's get started. So a little bit of background to start out is that salt marshes are tidally inundated coastal ecosystems that support vegetation, which can tolerate high salinity, like Spartina alterniflora, and whose elevation is thought to be in dynamic equilibrium with sea level. And because of the periodic inundation, salt marshes have slowed decomposition. And so they reflect marine and terrestrial change over time, which allows us to reconstruct past environmental conditions using the sediment record. And as we all know, salt marshes are also important because they are valued as sites of rapid carbon burial. And they also have many co-benefits, including preservation of critical habitat for fish, shellfish, and wading birds, as well as protection from flooding, water quality improvement, and providing recreation spaces. Despite all this, Rhode Island has lost about half of its salt marsh area in the last century, and those that remain are increasingly threatened by anthropogenic stressors as well as sea level rise. So hence it's critical to better understand why these marshes are disappearing, whether that's due to sediment limitation, anthropogenic stressors, or some combination. So our knowledge gap that we're trying to fill related to this is what mechanism is driving salt marsh disappearance in Rhode Island, and we want to explore that alongside our questions about carbon dynamics. There's also a need for improved carbon flux measurements, especially the impact of carbon loss through erosion and dissolved gas flux on long-term burial. Organic matter accumulation is critical for salt marsh geomorphic stability, and loss through methane and carbon dioxide fluxes results in sediment slumping and ponding and devaluation of blue carbon as carbon dioxide removal strategies. So representing the flow of carbon through a salt marsh with the salt marsh is the brown box. We can identify inputs and outputs that influence long-term burial. And there are multiple studies that have looked at the groundwater input or the ebb tide output of carbon separately, but combining them to get a holistic view of carbon dynamics within the pore water of our salt marshes is critical to understanding capacity for carbon storage and thus determining best management practices. All right. So that leads us to thinking about how tidal restrictions in the context of Block Island are going to impact long-term carbon burial and this groundwater inflow, as well as the ebb flood tide outflow. Right. So, as we all know, Block Island is culturally and economically valuable to Rhode Island, with more than 15,000 visitors a day in peak season and generating almost $250 million in revenue in 2023 alone. And also, Block Island is a birding destination for the Audubon Society. So, loss of salt marshes will contribute negatively to taking away critical habitat as well as possible tourism economic loss. And then additionally, as sea level rises, marshes tend to migrate inland, but that's limited here by high topographic relief and infrastructure, causing the coastal squeeze phenomenon. So there's a need for an alternative management plan. And then also, we worked closely with Judy in coming up with this project and recognize that there's an identified need around understanding these salt marshes a little bit better. As flooding increases, island transportation and infrastructure are also threatened, as Judy mentioned. Previous assessments using the sea level affecting marshes model, SLAM, predicted that the marshes of Block Island have limited ability to migrate. So some of this work is to ground truth that and give us some options of how to best manage these marshes moving forward. Lastly, Block Island marshes provide a model environment because it is an island. We can isolate controls on marsh stability overall and identify underlying mechanisms for carbon movement. So that makes it also relevant on the regional and global scale. Most importantly, New England states have adopted a regional environmental action plan that calls for reduction of CO2 relative to 1990 between 35 and 45% by 2030. And part of that accounting is salt marsh carbon sinks. And so there's especially a need right now to have more measurements across all marshes in New England to create more accurate carbon budgets. And then also small and island marshes are super understudied, even though 36% of Northeast marshes cover an area of less than 1 kilometer squared. So improved understanding of these fringing and small marshes is also providing disproportionate research value. And lastly, thinking about methane flux, it's wetlands are big contributors to the natural source of methane. And they, with tidal restrictions, our salt marshes can become bigger producers of methane. So it's important that we're understanding how our tidal restrictions are impacting our methane production as well. So based on all of that, our project objectives are to assess salt marsh vulnerability to sea level rise, quantify impacts of tidal restrictions on carbon burial, and then critically engage with community partners to meet identified needs, including testing for heavy metals and advising on potential dredging projects. So we went about selecting our sites in April of this year with Corey Hines and Judy Gray. We targeted sites along Corn Neck Road because we know that that's an area of interest. And we also thought about the varying tidal restrictions that we know exist to kind of study those impacts on the carbon dynamics. We think that Trims Pond and Harbor Pond are relatively tidally restricted, and we have some existing data thanks to Nigel from water level loggers to hopefully get an idea of what kind of restriction that is. And then obviously, as we said, importance to infrastructure are those kind of marshes along Corn Neck. So we'll get into methods. So at the end of September, a group of us came and collected some sediment cores. So here you see me setting up an RTK GPS, which will get really accurate elevation measurements. Then we took a gouge auger sample. So this is us pushing it into the ground. And then us just looking at the sample to see if we are able to do a larger core. And then hammering in our PVC pipe and extracting it with a farm jack. So that's kind of what the process of coring looks like. And we collected 6 of those. With those cores, we'll perform a couple different things. We'll section them, weigh them wet, dry them, weigh them again to perform, and then perform loss and ignition. And then we'll also have them in our gamma detectors, which just means they will sit for 24 hours and emit their usual gamma radiation, which is just from the breakdown of uranium 238, which naturally is occurring in the atmosphere from cosmic spallation. So we'll be able to detect how much lead is in these, lead 210 is in these samples, and that'll allow us to age date based on a calibration curve that exists. So we'll create an age depth model so that we can tell when each layer was deposited. And then we'll also do some heavy metal testing with inductively coupled plasma OEs. And then the other part of our project is thinking about gas flux. So in multiple different ways, from marsh to atmosphere is what you see on the bottom picture. We have a timed chamber sample collection method. So we'll take gas samples over time and we know the volume of our container so we can figure out flux. And we'll put those samples onto a Picaro cavity ring down spectrometer, which is able to give us concentrations of methane and CO2. And then we'll do, we'll do similar work with our pore water and ebb and flood tide water, with in situ collection of pore water with the sipper, and then headspace subsampling from those collections, and then running that on the Picaro as well. Additionally, if funding allows, we'll install shallow groundwater wells at each of the the 6 sites. And then throughout years 1 and 2, we'll collect tubes of groundwater and pore water once per month during the growing season and once in November and March. Source waters, including rainwater and ocean water, will also be collected yearly, and then we will measure their radon 226 and 228 using our gamma detectors to create a mixing model so that we can understand what contributes to our pore water, what's making up our pore water contents in our salt marshes. We'll also work to quantify dissolved organic carbon and inorganic carbon in the pore and tidal water. And we'll do this by collecting our samples and then constructing a calibration between a total organic analyzer and a UV vis spectrophotometer. And then we'll assess the lability, which is just the reactivity of the carbon, using the spectrophotometer so that we can determine the storage potential of this carbon as it's getting out into the tidal creek, if it's going to be able to be stored or used and remineralized and then produce CO2. And then lastly, we're also looking at marsh edge change by analyzing historic aerial photographs and using DSAS to quantify that. And then we will also be doing some outreach. It's a key part of our project is community engagement. So some folks already on the committee have been helping with citizen science things, and we're hoping to get folks more involved in taking samples as well. And then we're planning to give yearly BIMI Tuesday talks, also participating in Science Saturday at URI, which sees like 2,000 visitors, mostly catered toward kids. And then we're hoping to work with Block Island High School to provide a class and field trip to learn about our research and their salt marshes in the area, just to better connect with the environment. And then the last thing, which is the thing I'm most excited about, is a high school capstone project. One person from the mainland and one from Block Island, if they're interested. We'll work with the SMILE program at URI to connect with mainland high school students who have to do a capstone project for their senior year. And we will help them develop that and work with them to create a project from our work. So it could be like analyzing sensor data or doing the marsh edge change work, whatever they're interested in, and getting that exposure to lab and field work. So our anticipated benefits and impacts, we will produce a report at the end for this committee, hopefully giving you some management guidelines and things to consider. And then we're also just hoping to generally increase understanding and evaluation of salt marsh systems in our region through our outreach and work. And then for the science community, we're working on hoping for 2 to 3 publications and a couple of presentations. All right, so quick update on progress is that we've taken 6 cores. We had planned 5 sites, but we had a nice addition from Anne. So we did that in September, and then we have also collected water and gas samples back in September and today, which is great. And some initial observations. All the marshes seem pretty sandy. We saw a lot of sand, which makes sense. It's not a big place and things blow around. And then We noticed also a stark transition from mud to clay at the Salinas Marsh, which was interesting to us. And we're hoping to work with Brian Oakley to interpret that in terms of the Block Island context. But could be a transition from not a salt marsh into a salt marsh. So something interesting to look at. And then lastly, I went to Woods Hole to Oceanographic Institute to CT scan all our cores. And I'm working on calibrating those images to extract density and below ground biomass. So this is an example of one of our cores. This is a pretty short one. This is from Dingy Beach. So you can see some of the salt marsh grass up here. It's pretty faint. And then these, oh, sorry, I didn't orient you, but darker is less dense. So that's the mud. And then lighter is more dense. So most likely sand. So you can see some really clear sand layers where those green arrows are, which obviously we haven't dated this, so we don't know, but it could be likely a storm overwash that we're recording. Yeah, this is 50 centimeters, a 50 centimeter core. This is our shortest core. Yeah. And then briefly, just going over timeline. Obviously we're starting things now, especially in data collection and analysis. A lot of the sensor deployment and metals testing and things like that will happen once funding comes through, if and when. And then our outreach and engagement projects are ongoing. Obviously we're here today, but there's lots more to do. And then towards the end, we'll get to the rest of the research products. So I just acknowledge everyone. Thank you for having me, and thank you, Judy, and everyone on the committee. You've all been super helpful in providing field support and housing and all kinds of things. So with that, questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good job. You just powered right through that.
Sorry.
No.
Sorry if it was too fast.
No, I didn't think so. But does the committee, are there any questions? Sosha, you have a question?
Just curious. So once you've analyzed the health of our saltwater marshes and you've determined that some hard infrastructure is the problem, will you be making recommendations as to how to get the marsh healthier again?
Yeah, good question. I think what we can provide is mostly the health, and then connect you with folks who can help plan restoration. But I mean, I think we would love to be involved also. Obviously I'm a student and still learning, so I think that I would happily like grow and learn more about restoration practices. But yeah, I think restoring tidal flow could be a potential option, if we find that that's the issue. Yeah.
And the second question again is a thought. Do you see any zoning ordinances needing to be created to help facilitate the migration of the salt marshes?
That's a tough question, Sasha. I think hard to say now. Probably in the future could be more definitive with that. But I do think topography might be more of a limiting factor, and that inland migration isn't necessarily possible, even if there were, zoning for those marshes. But I do think that's something that we can think about going forward of what are options. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think, so I think that one of the ways that this could be really helpful to us is that along Corn Neck Road, we have a hard barrier and we have a salt marsh. And in a sea level rise scenario, how do we help the salt marsh continue to protect the road? Because that's what we're trying to do with this project. And so what we would learn would be generally applicable to other properties, but it would be, the town making an investment on the marsh side with something maybe like what they call thin layer deposition, where they spray a thin layer of like sand, but that allows the grass to keep growing through, and then they slowly build up the vertical relief of the marsh. And which is just a temporary measure, but but the whole idea is, how do we buy time for the road until it becomes something that the state just absolutely has to deal with? But how do we keep buying ourselves some time? And all of this kind of research is what's going to help us determine whether these are even candidate solutions, if that's even a candidate solution. So I think it's going to be very helpful to us. And we can help with, like, if you're doing monthly sampling, yeah, you have potential samplers sitting right here at the table and in the audience. Are there any other questions from the committee? Oh, yeah, George is on the committee, by the way. Sorry, you're not.
As usual, at least this, I was almost had an excuse this time, but we won't go into that. But my question has to do with, how do you collect the gas samples, or how do you do the gas analysis from sediment samples like that?
So right now, we weren't planning to do any direct sediment gas analysis. So what I've got up here is a little chamber. So that'll show us if we let that sit and equilibrate with the marsh, it's like flat with the marsh surface. And if we let
That's collecting the gas then?
yeah, yeah.
Oh, nice.
So
Okay.
the gas will escape into there, and then we'll extract samples over time so that we can tell how much is moving through the system. And then we'll also subtract out for plant photosynthesis and respiration as well, because
So that container will sit on the marsh for a period of time?
yeah, so we've been
Nice.
yeah, we do them for about 20 minutes. And then
And you did that today?
we did that today, yeah.
Wow.
But then also we're planning, but haven't done it yet, to get pore water samples as well, which will also get dissolved gas samples from, just by putting them in glass vials,
Right.
sealing them, and then bringing them back to the lab, injecting some N2 gas, some inert gas, and then being able to shake them and pull out what's in them.
That's cool. Cool stuff. Would these same methods be, now I'm jumping to a different topic a little bit, but would this be used to analyze the condition of our flats, our shellfish flats?
That's a good question. I don't know that I can speak to flats. You got anything?
Well, they're not too different, just a little bit more under the water. They'll go dry twice a day.
We didn't have any intention to do any sampling out on the flats beyond just maybe, like if we were to do some like sediment source studying, we might, want to take some end member kind of like grab sample sort of thing. But, obviously all these ecosystems are connected. And so, if the salt marshes are helping to, sequester sediments, nutrients, pollutants, that sort of thing, it's almost certainly going to be helping the health of, the mud flats and areas where shellfish are inhabiting.
Well, maybe we'll talk another time about how we can maybe expand it into that. Not as, anyway.
Those cores are significantly easier to take than the ones in the marsh.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question. My understanding is you do the research and the observation of the state of the Marshall today. We have been working on the committee, and we figure out that according to the data, in 25 years, a foot of water are going to be above anything else. So how are you going to be able to measure or no, to project what is going to be the impact with 1 foot of water above the marsh?
That's a good question. So what we can do is look back in time and correlate how well the marsh kept pace with sea level rise throughout the last 150 to 200 years. So that could give us an indicator of whether or not it will be able to keep pace with the more rapid sea level rise that is happening. I think that's as good an answer as I can give you.
So
Yeah.
that would be interesting for all of us to imagine how it's going to be in 25 years in this part of the island covered with water.
Yeah, I had a question about the sort of sand deposits you say were sort of different in different parts of the marsh, and whether this can tell you something about sediment transport around the Great Salt Pond, and whether you see sort of historical changes at all in depth of cores and so on.
That's a good question. We are working with Nate Vinatero and Brian Oakley, who do a lot of the like beach monitoring and understanding of sand budget on Block Island, to hopefully kind of associate with their project and use our sand layers that we're finding in our cores to be able to tell them like when sand will wash over, etc. So that we can hopefully start to get at that sort of a idea of how things are moving throughout the system. But I think the like small scale things of like sand being on top of the marsh is, I mean, most likely wind driven. Like, I mean, today was super windy and there was a bunch of sand on top of most of the marshes. So yeah, I think like observational things like that we can provide, but.
One more question.
Um,
How vulnerable are all marshes to global warming?
You're asking the hard questions. Uh, well, so essentially as sea level rise becomes more rapid, and if sediment supply stays the same, salt marshes won't be able to keep pace with that sea level rise.
No, I mean the temperature itself
Mm.
will be rising. The water temperature rises.
Yeah.
Can salt marshes keep up with that, or do they just change species?
Yeah, that's a good question. I bet I mean, yeah, this is just me pondering, but I think that it would have to be species changes
Yeah.
that are more heat tolerant. But I don't know if, yeah, I mean, I'm sure those exist maybe, or do they turn like to mangroves or something?
So you see Spartina all the way down to Florida. So I wouldn't think that this, there would probably be some species change. If somehow it got so warm that there was no frost, then yeah, mangroves would eventually form. But I think that's more of like many generations in the future, hopefully. But I do think that decomposition would be potentially faster.
Right.
But then again, productivity would also be higher. So
But there'd be less oxygen.
less, yeah. So I think that's a
I think,
complicated.
yeah, I think they would probably kind of like they do now ultimately balance each other out. Because right now decomposition is slow so that we don't have a lot of oxygen. So I don't know if that would change if we sped up primary production and decomposition. I think it would just maybe stay in that equilibrium, but who's to say?
Are there any questions from the audience? Yes, please, Kim. Please come up to the mic. I'm sorry.
Starting off with that hypothesis that there may be health issues associated with the marsh. What is that, and what is there a hypothesis about that you're looking at?
Very good question. Sorry that I didn't cover it. Yes, the kind of thought that we've had is that our more tidally restricted marshes are not going to be able to bury carbon as efficiently and are going to be less stable because of that. Which also means they're producing more methane because they're fresher. So we're trying to test that and see if that is true. And also that the loss of gases through that flux, both upward and outward, are contributing to destabilizing the marshes. So we're trying to see if those things are true.
Destabilizing meaning by species level or?
More of like a geomorphic
Right.
stability. So yeah, how well that sediment stays in place.
So by tidal restriction, so we sort of know that the Great Salt Pond fills up to the same level regardless of how far into the inner ponds you are. So obviously the water is getting there, and getting out as well. So what do you think? I mean, when you talk about tidal restriction, what do you sort of mean in the context of here?
Yeah, I think the multiple like roads between us and Trim's Pond, like between Salt Pond, Trim's Pond, and Harbor Pond, are there's a lag there, right? With how when the tide comes in and how much comes in.
Or
So thinking,
more?
yeah, but I
Couple of
think
minutes or
I think
maybe
yeah,
5.
I think that we're interested in seeing how that
I-
is changing.
The other thing is that it's not just it's the speed at which the water is moving because it's the sediment that it's holding that it is settling out. And
For
so, it's, yeah, so we, depending on where we make the measurements, we're also looking at sedimentation rates
And it's also
Yeah.
salinity too.
and salinity, right?
That we're interested in seeing if there's a change between Great
So
Salt Pond.
are you measuring salinity changes?
The hope is yes. We part of our grant is to install some sensors in addition to the water level loggers that you have to be able to
I have a spare.
Well, and,
That's
and we
nice.
do have the water level. Well, we do have the water loggers, water level loggers, and, we have a small, consortium of investors out here. Several of the nonprofits out here have invested in these, and then Nigel manages them for us. But pretty much, and the data and the physical instruments. But but there is an opportunity for if you want to add features to those samplers, that we can go back to the nonprofits and add salinity sensor or whatever, or O2 or whatever you are looking for, and we can look into and if you come to us with what the costs are, that's really helpful. But we can see if we can afford to buy a sensor or two for that. Those we did before the committee had any money. And now we have $2,000 a year, so we also have a little bit of money to spend.
Rolling in it.
Well, but the data loggers, what was that total investment? Like 10 or 12,000, 5, whatever, it wasn't very much. It was just a few $1,000s, so that, I think everybody pitched in 1,500. So, yeah, it wasn't bad. Yeah, for across 3 or 4 or 5 organizations. So we can, if you need help with that, we'll let the grant hopefully come through, but if not, all is not lost. And I know that you need to get to the ferry. So I
Yeah.
will.
Better hurry.
excuse you Unless you have one more.
No, they
no
better
questions.
run.
Okay, yeah, no, they're gonna dash off and,
I was just gonna say, oh, Izzy's email is up there.
Oh yeah.
Izzy.rico@uri.edu if you have more
Brilliant.
questions.
And maybe Judy will also.
oh,
send it
yeah,
out
oh,
next
yeah,
time
I'm
she-
happy to share that, yeah. And thanks you guys so much for coming out today and speaking with us. And I really, now it's codified that you're working here and what you're doing for us. And I really appreciate you guys coming out today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, they did not have a smooth crossing on the way over. So while Aaron and Izzy are escaping, Thanks so much, you guys, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Maybe take a picture of where you leave my car so I know where to find it.
Yes. Yeah, great.
Thank you. It might be dark by the time I get out there. Okay, so we're gonna move on with the regular part of our meeting, the business part.
I have a question following the presentation.
Following this presentation.
Yes.
Oh, yes, go
Just a
ahead.
minute. Is my understanding was the Conservancy is also looking at the wetland, the Conservancy?
The Coastal Conservancy or the Block Island Conservancy?
I don't know which
or
one,
the
the one we met last time.
Oh, the Coastal
Oh.
Conservation Commission.
Right.
Yes,
They,
yes,
they are another site on the wetland as well.
yes.
So is the work they are going to do?
Yeah,
Can we share with them? or-
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and hopefully they'll watch the YouTube and yeah.
Okay, so they need.
Yeah,
to-
we'll keep
keep
it,
that.
trying to keep that line of communication open. So first order of business for the meeting is public input. Is there any public input for today? Oh, please. And please tell us your name and where you live.
There we go. Hi. I'm Jody Brotherhood. I live on Amy Dodge Lane, and I've lived here for a long time in the area. And I was speaking with Nigel the other day, but it seems to me that my observation is that the Springhouse Pond has had a major breach. And I've got photographs of it, but
Yeah.
the water level is way down, more than it's been from just drought. And I walked Pebbly, and I think I identified where the breach is affected. Now, I know it may very well be beyond the scope of any of us here to be able to do anything about that. But I just wanted to see where that lower water level is not just from lack of rainfall here, but I did observe it at one point actually flowing to Pebbly down there.
Oh,
And
that's
if you,
really interesting.
and if you-
Waiting for that to go for a long time.
yeah, and there have been people who have tried to facilitate that happening historically, as I remember.
It
But
looked
it's,
like I think it was last Easter or maybe the Easter before, it looked like it was held up by one blade of grass.
yeah, it's been going for a long time, but I guess it's because that the pond itself is sort of pipe hand shape.
Yeah.
That it doesn't mean, levee done bust and it's all going to flow out, but it's dropped down quite a bit.
Interesting.
I mean, I know that there are things that, you see what happens with the coastal things that's happened on Scotch Beach with those kinds of quarlog and things like that. But, and again, it's private property. It's also under CRMC and probably RIDEM jurisdiction as
Yes.
well. But, I
Well,
don't
and
know.
I'm sure it's something that anyone would want to save. It's just a matter of what does that mean for the road for Spring Street and
It's got a long time before it's going to impact Spring Street, I think. But there have been suggestions of being able to place quarlog not on the ocean side,
put in the.
but
pond.
actually in the pond, because that's where you want to try to build up
I see.
that barrier and sediment. You kind of look at it backwards
Yeah, that'd be.
to see
interesting.
how you could do it with hay bales or whatever. But I don't know
Yeah.
if it's even, again, it's coastal resiliency, whether it's because of the sea level rise or the rainfall
Right.
amount that's washing it down. It all amounts to the same thing, that we're losing this part of the coastline. So that's just an observation. You can go down and look at it. I do have some pictures of the, you don't want, getting down to Pebbly can be treacherous. So I do have some pictures of where it looks like it's breached there if anybody needs
Thank
any
you.
more information. So
And are you're related to John Brotherhood?
I'm his son.
Oh, I'd love to. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, and Lee, of course. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, that's very interesting. Yes, Faye, come on up. And tell your name and.
Look, hey Benedict, I live in Norway. My public input is that sitting over in Norway, I did watch your last workshop and the presentation by the engineering company that's been working, and it was great. And think that you can be sitting on the other side of the world and follow what's going on in your committee. That's number one. Just so keep it up. It's this sort of dissemination work for public engagement is just super important. And so the other half of my comment is that I really appreciate the level of the work that you're doing, of the scientific content, which we saw an example of today. And, there's going to be things coming out of that. And also the engineering firm. I thought they're very professional and clear and good, so that's my public input.
Thank you.
You're appreciated.
Okay. All right. Anything else? I'm going to move on to approval of the minutes from October 7th. Can I hear a motion to approve our October 7th minutes?
So moved.
A second? Wait, but then we'll have a discussion.
Second.
Okay, and discussion, Mary.
Just on D, I think it was 1D. No, 3D. At the last sentence there, core neck and possible nature-based solutions to build up strength. Do you just want to say strength of what in that sentence? The strength of the marsh? Do you see that?
Okay, I'll take a
Indeed.
look at it and I'll make sure that that we're clear.
Not a huge thing, just clear.
Right, no, that's good. No, that's clear. Thank you. Laurel, you tackle me on that one. Okay, I'll make sure that the sentence is completed and it's clear. Anything else on the October 7th minutes? Okay, all in favor of adopting these minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. The next item is town updates, town and council updates. And I will start with an update from the town council. And I will do this by reading an email that I received from Mike Gardner after our last town council interaction. Since the last meeting, this project has been largely put on hold. So this is GZA, our engineering firm. Awaiting a path forward and a decision on which conceptual designs the team and the town would like to move forward to later stages of design. Currently, GZA is planning to move forward to 60% design, the beach pathway design with simple fencing, as well as the Scotch Beach regrading and vegetated stormwater management system, no pavers, what we had described to the town council at the meeting. Based on town input, we do not plan to move forward with the town beach parking areas. And Mike, like to hear what you think about that. And if we need to do something to persuade the town that that's an important thing to do, because I want to be mindful of what your long-term needs are there. They will, right now, what they're planning to do instead with the time they have left on their contract is to begin to review what might be able to be done to advance plans to mitigate hazards posed by the gap in the dunes at the town beach house and what moving the pavilion might look like. So we do have a little bit of wiggle room, I guess, to move into the town beach pavilion if that's what, and they're really waiting for guidance from us on how we want to move forward. And maybe, maybe our little subgroup, Mike, Mary, Nigel and I can have a confab with GZA and figure out how we want to go forward. And if we need to talk to anyone on town council first, but can you put that as an action item and nag me to make sure I do that, pull that off. Okay. Is there anything else from the town council? Ann?
Just a question. So the dune paths, they're only going to look at the fencing, not the mats?
We can tell that Mike had expressed an interest in not doing the mats. We can advance the engineering design of the mats and then just not employ them. And that was what I was going to suggest to them is to look at the mats and then we can decide because that'll get us to the point where we're able to do it, not that we have to do it.
I'm a little confused, Judy, when you use the words, they are looking for a direction from us. Are you saying GZA is looking for direction from us? I would assume that GZA is looking for direction from the town council.
Correct. from the town.
Yeah, not this committee.
Correct. Yeah, we're just facilitators at this point.
Yeah,
Yes.
and just a minor suggestion. Before you meet with Mary and whoever you just mentioned, that we can have a whole committee discussion on this so that every member of this organization has had a chance to give input, even though they're not on that subcommittee.
Oh, sure.
That would be my suggestion.
Yes. We can do that right now if you want, or would you like to, I mean, would you, what would your preference be on that? I mean, I'd like to keep these guys going. So they can be kept very gainfully employed doing the beach paths, Scotch Beach, and, you know, and the beach house, and then the parking lot is sort of in suspense right now.
Yeah.
We can also advance that design. Once again, we don't have to do it, but we can advance the design so that we're ready to do it whenever.
So the first question I would have is, what percentage of the 60% design of the parking lot has already been spent?
Right. We don't know. Yeah, we're not at 60% design. That's
No, but we're also not at zero, right?
correct. That's correct.
I really would love to know what kind of money, I mean, Amy froze the parking lot plan. She told GCA to scrap that. So my question then becomes, well, what extra money is available and how do we spend that money?
Right. And that's the conversation with the GZA and the little subcommittee.
Yeah.
Kind of information. Yes. Yeah. And Mike.
So GZA was asked to scrap the parking lot plan? Did I hear that correctly?
That's what I was told by Amy, that day, that was the same day as the town council meeting. That she was going to freeze that part of the planning.
Yeah, I hadn't
Okay.
heard that either. So.
And I sent an email to Allison reminding her that if we do complete at least the 60% design plan, we are eligible for future grants, which we are not now because we're, quote, not shovel ready.
Right.
And in my estimation, even if we bring this plan up to 60% design and then later discover that it needs some alteration, that would be all right. You see? So I see an advantage to bringing it up to 60%.
Yeah.
I also want to argue that I understand that the parking lot is not really a sea level rise concern. It is a rain event concern. It's a pain in the blank.
Yeah.
And every
Oh.
summer, the poor tourists suffer from
Yeah.
it. So if the design is there, you know, let's do something for them. I can argue that the Scotch Beach plan is not even a sea level rise event. It's a storm surge event. That dune, if talking theoretically, that dune should be closed off, period. As much as the dunes next to the beach pavilion. So that, you know, I'm just arguing.
I understand. I understand. And we can, I'll let this go on for a couple more minutes and then we can get on because we do have a bunch of other stuff in our agenda. But I do want to hear what you guys have to say. So go ahead, Anne.
So just a clarification, you said at the end of that email, they said that they will look instead basically of doing
Yes.
the
Pavilion.
looking at the Town Beach parking lot, they would look at the
Pavilion, and they had already been,
But not,
looking at
that would not be like to 60% design or whatever. That's
That's
more
correct.
just conceptual. That would
That's
have to
correct.
be carried forward with another grant.
that's correct.
Okay.
I just want to add.
Yes, go ahead.
When you say they start to work on a beach house, what does it mean?
The beach, that means what conceptual designs.
But they are not architects.
No, these are engineering
Right,
designs.
they don't design, they do
No, they
architecture.
won't design the house itself. No.
And also, from everything we learned the last few months, there is, and it's very interesting to have this person looking at the marsh because I've seen during the last storm and all of this event, the water, the sand, the motion is very, is huge. The dune are moving in 3 days. I can see 4 feet of sand.
Yeah.
So it cannot be disconnected of the design of the beach house. Everything need to go together.
Correct.
So the design will meet the mother nature, if you want, the motion of the sun, the motion of
Right.
the water, and the architecture of the building to fit the desire of everybody.
Right.
So it's a big chunk of work.
Yes, and that's why we do not have the funding to do
Right,
that.
that's why I'm-
But they can they can advance some ideas and present options. Us.
And also I have when you say they need to close the access to the dune, there is a lot of people using their truck in the winter.
Oh, I know.
And there is emergency truck in the summer.
Yes.
Emergency truck need to access to the dune if there is a big accident, whatever. So it's very complex to,
Yes, it is.
to make a decision on that.
Yes, it
That's
is.
what I want to say.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to move on to an update from Allison Ring, who is not able to be with us today. But here's a brief update from her. She thinks that we should plan to reconvene the working group to give GZA some direction and authorize next steps, which is what we had just discussed. She did get a 1-year extension this week from the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank. So we have another year of timeline on the infrastructure bank. And we knew we were going to ask for that. They knew we were going to ask for it because of how late in the process they released the money and stuff. Oh, crap. And I should just turn that off. Okay. So brief update. Conceptual design stakeholder meeting was held in August. Town and stakeholders have reviewed the master plan report and conceptual designs and provided input. Based on input, we're moving towards 60% design for the beach pathways. Oh, it's the same thing that Mike said. Based on recent town input, okay, it's just exactly what Mike said. Okay, so she's just reiterating what GZA said. So obviously we need to all get together and make a next step. I know GZA is hungry for that too.
Talking about Allison for a second.
Yeah.
She doesn't know if she's going to be guiding the new comprehensive plan, the renewal of the comprehensive plan. And I would imagine that that impacts whether she is also going to be in charge of the maps that will be needed for the new comprehensive plan. So that it seems from my perspective that her role is somewhat obscure to us at this point. My wish is that at some point that we learn what it is that she will be doing with and for this particular committee in 2026, because it's vague right now. We're asking questions, we're asking for information and whatnot, and there's an inconsistent response, which may be because it's not her job.
Well, and she works only 10 hours a week. So,
You know,
yeah.
right? Okay.
Yeah. Okay, update from the Climate Resilience Coordinator, Nora.
Hi, Nora Clark, Climate Resilience Coordinator for the Nature Conservancy. I just have 2 quick updates. Firstly, Anne and I have worked on a mini grant proposal, so we just wanted to share that with you guys, of a series of meetings that we were calling Resilient Together, which would hopefully be kind of just a space for watching documentaries or reading things, possibly having speakers to really just kind of talk about resilience in general, both like worldwide and climate, anxiety and feelings of kind of connected to that, but also resilience on Block Island in general. And so TBD on if that would happen, but if so, we'll kind of update you guys and would love for you guys to attend those meetings this winter would be the goal there. And then the other thing is this map right here that James Bailey created. I had reached out to him a couple weeks ago, and I know I've talked to some of you about that I go work with the sixth graders at the Block Island School every couple weeks, and I had asked him to look into possibly a visual map of sea level rise in the Great Salt Pond specifically. And so this is the map that he's kind of created. So I'm still working out exactly what that looks like, but hopefully after kind of figuring that out and testing it with sixth graders, we could also use it as a tool in future public engagement events. So
Wonderful.
those are
Thank
the
you.
2 updates.
That's wonderful. Yeah. Thank you. And I'm sorry we couldn't do that while James was here. Okay, update from the Black Island Coastal Resilience Committee Chair. I have a couple of things to report. I did attend the last statewide climate resilience community engagement event, and I'm happy to report that Block Island has bubbled up to the top in 2 areas. One is the ferry, particularly the Galilee end of the ferry, and the Block Island Power Company are both top priorities for the state in terms of climate resilience. So I thought that was really good news for us. Yeah. I also wanted to call your attention, thank you very much, Mary, to the climate budgeting articles that came out of Norway. I sent them all to you guys, and for those in the audience, I have a couple of versions up here about what climate budgeting is and why it's important to think about that for our town. And I'll include the link in the minutes as well. Let's see. Got that done. Here's the priorities. Also have the state priorities list up here for the climate resilience. I wrote a letter of support for a proposal that's coming out of Rhode Island Sea Grant, and they're building a island resilience cohort. They want to pull together members from other islands in the state of Rhode Island. And what are our challenges? What are our best practices? What are the things we can share? And what are the things we can work on together? It's called Advancing Coastal Resilience Solutions and Adaptability by Building Island Capacity. And that's the name of there's a copy of the letter of support up here if you're more interested in what they're doing in that proposal. And I'm just really encouraging as much interest on Block Island as I can. Let's see. Oh, and then the last thing is Roger Williams. I don't know if you remember, but a year ago, 2 years ago, year and a half ago, we had a Roger Williams University law student come out and work with us, Sam Figliata. Anyway, Sam, who came and reported out to us, and he looked at a couple of different legal challenges, and we had him look at buildings and condemnation of buildings and when do you condemn, and he looked at the ferry and where are there some we have his report, and the Roger Williams has now put out a call to ask if there are problems or challenges that anybody in the state has that could use a law fellow to help address. So think about it, put your thinking caps on, and let me see if it's for the spring semester 2026. And I'm trying to see if there's a deadline on here for. No. Yeah, and the cost, once again, is $3,000, which we ended up not even paying last time. So there's no, it doesn't look like there's a due date on here, but if you have any ideas of a 1-semester project for a law fellow to work with the staff attorneys and other partners over the course of a semester, please let me know, and I'll follow up with Roger Williams. Yeah, that's a really good thing. Okay, let me go back to this. That's it on town and council updates, unless anybody else has one. And now I'd like to move on to the Coastal Resilience Committee and the fact that we now have 2 openings on our committee. You know that, okay, so it was a little confusing with what was reported in the BI bulletin board. There are 4 positions on the committee that technically end in December of this year, 2025. They are Jean-Louis, Valerie Blansfield, Anne Salinas, and my very own self. So Jean-Louis, Anne, and I have all indicated that we would like to stay on. They don't have to keep us, but we've all indicated that we would like to stay on. We have a vacancy where Claire Cummings had dropped off, which we all knew about. And I'm very sorry, but I think Valerie just sent an email right before this meeting letting us know that she will not be continuing on this committee after her term ends in December and she'll rotate off. That's for personal reasons, family reasons. And I told her that she's always welcome. Just let us know. And if she thought she was getting rid of us, she had another thought. It's because we actually get a lot out of working with people who aren't on the committee because we don't have to worry about quorums and they can still work. They can still do work for us. So I'm very sorry to lose Valerie, but I don't think we're really losing her. We're just shifting her into a different role. So now we have 2 vacancies. I will put out a note to the community. Right now, we have no applications. We had one tickle of interest. We've had a couple of tickles of interest, but no letters have been submitted to Millie yet. And if you know of anybody, I can resend Keisha's email that describes the process. It just went out like a week ago. And, but it's basically a letter to Millie with please copy me so I know what's going on. But a letter to Millie expressing an interest in the committee. And it's actually to Millie, but it's to the town council through her.
And that they have a choice whether it's 2 or 3 years.
No, they're both 2 years.
Oh, they're both 2
Yeah,
years?
we're all 2 years. Yes. Yes.
Oh, never mind.
Yes, they're both of these vacancies. I checked and made sure that both of these will end in 12/31/2027. All terms now will be 2 years. It was just that first.
That initial, I forgot.
Yeah,
You're
that
right.
was, one was, yeah, some of us were 3 years and some of us were 2. But yeah, now everybody's a 2-year term and these 2 vacancies are for 2-year terms. So get the word out, please. You want to hear? Yes.
We need probably to reorganize the subcommittee because
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. So.
people are moving around. And
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, we have working groups and points of contact for things, and all of that will be revisited in January.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those are the openings. If you want to know what your term is, I just printed this out. So, just this past week. So it's pretty much up to date, except for Valerie. It's pretty much up to date. And so you can see what your term is, but basically everybody's here on until 12/31/27, except Jean-Louis, Anne, and myself. So, so that's the terms of the current committee members. Now, I have been the chair for 4 years. In December, it'll be 4 years. Actually, it's 4 years now, November, because that was our first meeting. I'm very grateful that Anne Salinas has agreed to step up to be chair. This will become formal in January. We have to vote on that. But she has actually thrown her hat into the ring. Thank you so much.
We're so relieved.
Yes, the rest of the committee is deeply relieved. And I, if am voted back, first of all, if the town council accepts me back, and then if I'm voted in, I'd be willing to be the vice chair so that I'm really there to back up Anne so that she doesn't have to start all from scratch like I did. You know, I'll be there to teach her everything I've learned along the way. But we've also talked about creating another position, and that's secretary, somebody who keeps track of all the paper stuff and makes, yeah, well, but it's an important, I mean, I've been doing it, you know, I've been doing, yeah, I've been acting as secretary for 4 years and it's, but it is another sort of job besides being the chair or the vice chair. And so, Anne and I agreed that we will, start putting together an idea of what the duties would be of a secretary. But if you're interested or even have some questions, please let me know and you can join our little group that's going to lay out what the responsibilities are. So if you are thinking about doing it, this is your chance to just say what it is you're going to do. I just put that out there. No decisions have to be made right now. This is just a preamble for January. And anything else on the committee, the terms, the members? Please, please, please encourage your friends and family to apply if they're good. And secretarial, that's right. Yeah, there you go. Anything else on that? Great. Then let's move on to the Coastal Resilience Map Hub hosting and updating, which is Nora and Jean-Louis. And thank you, you guys.
Yeah, so Jean-Louis can chime in here. I was hoping Allison Ring would be on here so we could kind of chat with her, but I think Jean-Louis and I had a really great meeting with his student the other week of kind of where the map is, which is really basically finished. And so just kind of wanted to discuss here where to store that map, where works best in terms of kind of location, and then kind of how to share out this map as a resource, as a tool for the public, and kind of thinking about how it works best to get this map out. I know we shared it obviously in our little mini table at the event back in August, and I've started thinking about how to put together kind of a tutorial that would hopefully make it a little, in like probably a 5 or 7 minute tutorial to give people a little context of how to use it once they get onto the website. But wanted to kind of talk through that with you all in terms of what makes the most sense in terms of how to share that out, and then what thoughts are on how to host it and update it best way. Yeah.
One layer, for example, is the footprint of the building. There is construction every year. I don't know, 20 buildings every year. I know somebody is doing it right now. So how we connect with this person who does the update of the footprint? So it's going to be on this.
Right. Basically, what even if we don't even need to know who it is, just when it gets updated, it gets incorporated.
Right.
And so what we really need is a person who's managing it and who's keeping track of that and paying attention to it and care and feeding. And if the town, if the town loses the link, they reestablish the link and stuff like that. I don't have a preconceived notion of what the right place is for this.
Yeah.
This is way out of my area of expertise, but I do know that the care and feeding of a database management system like this is not insignificant, that it does take some time and effort. If we had a coastal resilience officer in the town, I would hope that this would be an area of responsibility for them, but we do not. And so these are really important questions. And where to host is it, I don't know that we want to host it on the town website, but maybe that is, I mean, we need to speak with the pros in the town to see what the limitations are there. Mary, yeah, there's a.
Just really quick, thanks for doing that, Nora. But I was just reading this week, I don't know what town it was, I'll look back and see. they had the same problem and they were trying to come up with just a name where you could bump into somebody at the post office and say, go to the X, Y, and Z, and they called it the Knowledge Hub. And just to kind of imagine what that would be for us so that we can direct people there, quickly, whether it's the town council that's trying to understand so much of the work that you've all done here for 4 years. That was shocking when you said 4 years, Judy. So a knowledge hub or something like that.
It's two thoughts. One is, I don't know where things stand with the Orsted agreement, the position that's funded through that, but the last I heard, there was, they were going to develop an RFP to hire someone or a firm to play that role. So maybe this could be part of that person's, once they're hired, which I don't know what the timeline is, but part of something they would manage. But other question is it also something that maybe could be put on the Nature Conservancy site that we already have, the Coastal Resilience?
Yeah, I definitely think that there's opportunity to like certainly link for it on there. It's also not my expertise in terms of like, the map itself has lots of data, and so I want to make sure it's housed in a place that supports that level of data.
Okay.
And so I think that's really the question there. And so I think, to be honest, I think kind of the answer is that maybe I can then reach back out to Allison Ring about this and share the kind of final link, and maybe Amy as well, to kind of really follow up with like where it makes the most sense, and if the town has interest in hosting it, or at least putting the link on that
is
town.
So right now,
Mhm. But where, yeah. Right.
so right now, what's the current hosting situation and
Oh, no, it's
how temporary is it?
the University of Michigan.
Yeah.
Because the student, so she has access to that.
Does she have is there a date by which
No.
it needs to get off of
No,
that server?
Just
Okay.
like it's almost done, so I'm excited to share that with as many people we can. So the tech issue is not very complicated. It's just whoever is going to take the liability to pay the $20 a year or $40 to host the site, that's not an issue. It's not complicated. It's more like political, like.
Okay, so it could be a link. It doesn't have to be actually like
Yeah,
hosting
but
all the
it
data.
need to be out of the University of Michigan.
Oh,
It
it
need
does.
to be somewhere. Not today, not tomorrow, but
Okay.
1 month, 2 months, we need to
Okay.
remove that. So it could be different way. It could be a private server. We have that. It could be, there is a lot of technical way. It's not an issue. The issue is like, is the town interested to look at it and use as a tool? Because there is like, for example, what we did last week, there was an email from Jenny Brady about some review about wetland and one lot. And so I took the number of the lot and I start to look at, and we couldn't find it. So we add the layers of number of lot on the server. So now you can look at the lot number. You can look who is in charge of water management, DEM. We had this layer, and some of them are divided in 2 or 3 ownership. So all of this is available now. You can, in 10 minutes, you know who owns it, how you manage the water, who does that, that's it. So if the town want to use that, this is great. The only, like I said, the only issue is when there is a new building, it needs to be added on the layer. When there is a new street who's done, it's not going to be a street every year. But you see, there is some micromanagement of the update.
So what would the process be to sort of put this forward to the town of, is this something that the town could host and
I would start with
integrate?
With Millie. Yeah, she's the right person. She's told me she's
Okay.
the internet. Would start with her, and then she'll guide us to whoever we need to speak with. So they have technical people also, but we start with Millie. She's the she's the workload management person.
So are we all okay with that moving forward, that whoever you guys? just send it to Millie
That-
and say.
Yeah, that works. I'm happy to, I've shared it with Allison ring before, but yeah, I'm happy to reshare it with her and Millie included on that and kind of see what Millie says in terms of next steps.
Yeah, and I'll help you with the letter, whatever.
Okay.
Make sure that we say it in
Yeah,
a
yeah.
nice way or
Yeah.
whatever the correct, so
Say,
that
I
we
was
can-
gonna say
yeah.
it mean, so.
Proper.
We need to understand if every department in the town is excited to use it or not. Because if only one group, one department say, yeah, this is great, but everybody else doesn't want to look at it, maybe we don't need to have it at the town, we have
Right.
it somewhere else.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't want to use it.
Awesome. So next steps would be reaching back out to Allison and Millie about it.
Yeah.
Since it's a resource, could we argue that maybe the library would host it?
Oh. What
Yeah,
a
that'd be
great
a good-
idea.
yeah.
On the tip of my tongue. Could be different places, it could be the server in one place and the link.
I'm not technical.
Yeah.
Yeah, links and I mean,
But
certainly QR
good
code for it
idea.
as
The
well.
library is a great idea.
Okay.
But let's see what the town says and let's find out what the restrictions are. They speak a whole nother language and so you don't want me to be the only person in the room negotiating.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's find out
Okay.
what the state is. And then we can figure out who's the designated responsible person for, yeah.
Great. Sounds like a plan.
Thanks, Nora.
Thank you. And thank you, Jean-Louis, again.
And Jean.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, we have an opportunity to receive updates from the working groups on the points of contact. Is there,
Anne is good.
Anne is, yes.
A quick update from the ordinance group, which has kind of evolved to not just be focused on ordinances, but we have landed on the idea of developing a booklet that the town would hopefully provide to anyone planning new construction, but also to be available for anyone online that would cover, the guide basically to land use and building design that, mitigates the impacts of flooding and sea level rise and resilience. So we sort of looked at all these different areas and come back to most of them at what's needed right now is more of an education focus. So that's how we landed on that. But there are a couple areas. So I guess with that, we want to maybe at the next meeting present the sort of outline of what that booklet would look like, as well as a plan for producing it. And I mean, getting everyone's agreement, hopefully, on moving forward with it. If we do move forward, then we might also want to use some of the $2,000
Yes.
to pay for someone to help with some aspect of producing it. We sort of went back and forth about whether the content might just be easier for us to do it at this point because we've been compiling things, but maybe someone to format the final document or, produce it basically. The second thing is that we feel like setback relief and freeboarding, which is a new term to me, are two areas that are potentially needed in the near future. So we're investigating we want to investigate how many properties are potentially, in need of this, either setback relief or the ability to elevate their home and do that, to have, that's what freeboarding is. Yes.
Yeah,
If someone else wanted
it's
to-
vertical.
Yeah.
If the building height limit is 35 feet and your building is 35 feet and you're in a flood zone, they're asking for relief so that you can lift up your house and now you're above the height limit, but you haven't built a new building, you haven't, all you're doing is saving your house. And so there's a lot of communities that have this relief available, but it was done through, some kind of official process, zoning change or whatever, or some kind of official process that the town council voted on or
Right.
whatever the organizing body, management body is.
So our sense is like the current state regulations and our ordinances may be sufficient for allowing for these things, but we want to verify that and then again, report back at the next meeting. It might be that some additional, ordinance revision is needed for, to ensure that these things can happen, but also to have a better sense of, again, how many buildings or potential future buildings would be affected. And may be affected and they're not.
Will you send
just
me a
to be
note
clear.
after this meeting so I make sure that
Yeah.
I get it on the agenda for next meeting
Yeah.
for this? Thank you.
And
Um,
then one other thing on Great Salt Pond Marsh Migration, I did reach out to Wenley Ferguson, who's the director of habitat restoration at Save the Bay. She's the person that was recommended as someone who could evaluate the properties that were identified in the salt marsh migration study as being tier 1, meaning sort of most like protection in some way to allow for marsh migration. So she and I have kind of been playing text tag, so we haven't actually spoken yet, but she is potentially interested. And I just wanted to flag that's another thing that might need some.
And actually that leads beautifully into Mary. Would you like to come up and talk a little bit about BIRA and because we talked about Respect BI maybe as being a source of but now I'm moving more into community outreach, but that committee. But would you like to say something?
Yeah,
about
that's
that?
okay. Sure. Yeah. Thanks. Anne and I spoke with Sarah Bacon and who's the gentleman on the call? Joe? Loya, thanks. He was on the call with us a few days ago. But I think early on in a conversation we had with Sarah, Bayer was interested in doing what could they do to help the committee out. And so we had a long walk and talked about it. And then when we met with Joe and Sarah just a few days ago on Zoom, what we talked about was the idea of them funding, if they were willing, to have a guest speaker come. I've been in touch with Leah Hill from Nantucket. I know we're not Nantucket, with all due respect to Block Island and Nantucket, but some of the work that she's done there we thought would be really helpful for this committee and the town at this point, because she can share with us some successes they've had, in particular with community outreach and their different styles of sort of designing that, different ways of offering community outreach, if you will. So Leah was happy to do it. Once I told her how jealous we were of all the funding they have, because she's actually the full-time coastal resilience coordinator for Nantucket. And I just spoke to her the other day just to let her know we wouldn't have the opportunity to meet with her in November, possibly, I think Judy was saying possibly January, maybe February.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to share that with you because we haven't written the final letter to BIRA. They just asked us to put something together a few days ago. And Judy, we wanted you to be involved in that too.
Yes. Yeah, please. I'd like to. And
Yeah.
and it doesn't have to be at one of our meetings. We can, Ann and I discussed this.
Yeah.
It's really, it can be a BIRA event
Yeah, exactly.
in support of us and that we encourage
Yes.
attendance at, but that, yeah.
Yeah, but they were willing to pick up the tab for Leah Hill to come here for travel expenses.
That's great.
Expenses and overnight expenses. So it seemed like a good opportunity. And also to, as you say, not just to have them host the meeting, but to have them reach out to their hundreds of members.
Right.
It seemed to us to be able to expand that
The
reach
yeah.
in that work that we're doing on community outreach. So yeah, we just have to come back with them with that note and date and plans, and the same to Leah as well.
I'm in.
Okay.
Wonderful.
I wanted to add to what Anne was talking about earlier, because I would like the committee to either support it or not support it. Instead of mandating all the suggestions that will be placed in that booklet, we're pushing for education approach because even if an item ought to be an ordinance, for people to buy into new ordinance changes, they need to understand the value, and that's brought to them through education. So we see it as a process. Over time, maybe some of these items that we've come up with will become mandated, but we don't want to start that way.
I appreciate
Does
that.
does the committee support that? I want to know.
I certainly support that approach. Yeah.
Is there a danger there that you, as it were, you're sort of warning people this is going to happen, so they try and do it before it does to get around the problem? Do you see what I'm saying? I mean, there's an awful, you certainly see that in society at large.
I think
They realize some change is going to be made and they want to slip under it.
that'll always happen, right? But I could argue that the items that we've come up with are the examples of best practices, and I don't see how you can finagle those.
Yeah, and I don't think we're in the business of trying to second guess how everybody's going to react. I do think that we're trying to do sort of the velvet hammer approach. You know, the hammer's behind the velvet, but we're using the velvet.
Right. And as you know, social front planning, the homeowner, the applicant would have to abide by the existing zoning regulations and planning regulations anyway. So they wouldn't be able to undercut their legal obligation.
We could try.
So we are right at 4:30. So our meeting ending time. Is there anything else that anybody wants to get off their chest or before we end this meeting? Anything
No,
that
just
anybody wants to say?
just remind them that the next meeting is on Monday.
Yes, so that was exactly what I was going to do. Our next meeting is December 1st. It's a Monday, not a Tuesday. And we have URI's Coastal Institute coming out and talking to us about becoming a climate response demonstration site. We've sent in the letters of support and they're moving forward with this. And so the reason why we're doing it on Monday is because that nets us Brian Oakley. That gets him here and he and Nate Vinatiero are the leads on this. So for you probably haven't heard this before, Jamie, is that what you said your name was?
Jody.
Oh, Jody. Oh, so they don't necessarily have a lot of funding, but they have access to a lot of funding. And when you become a demonstration site with the Coastal Institute at URI, it's a mechanism for attracting funding for research and things like that. And expertise. Right?
And expertise, yeah.
Yes.
And it was one of the things that the last time I was here, there was a lot of talk about, we were talking about the marshlands today, and it's interesting in that type of mitigation, migration and stuff. They were talking about the riparian areas on the east side of the island.
Right.
And there was a lot of discussion, and I'd like to find where I can look for more information about how the currents and the accretion of sand that we see each year on the
Right.
beach can be helped if we can you look at what's in Old Harbor right now, which to me is historic. I've never seen
It's so full.
that so full in 50 years.
Yeah.
I've never seen it like that. Now I know Army Corps of Engineers needs to dredge this harbor each year, but in terms of understanding what they do with that spoil,
Yes.
and I think we've already found out kind of like what you don't do with it
Yes.
recently at the revetment area,
Yes.
how to not make those kinds of mistakes, how to understand that if we can somehow knowing what the currents do out there. And I looked at NOAA and I looked at the stuff that's not, Eldridge just doesn't have a lot of information about the specific currents there. They have tidal information, stuff like that, but how it moves, how far, where to place that spoil, if we could,
Right.
to let the natural
Exactly, like a.
things move it
like
on
a
and off.
sand engine, which is what Sosha talks about all the time.
Right, okay, well, great minds think alike, we already see that.
Put it in another spot and let nature redistribute it
Right.
onto the beach.
What I understand is that when we see it, you walk on the beach in the wintertime and it's all rocks and it's gone off there. It doesn't really go that far. It only goes maybe a couple hundred yards off the beach. And then it redeposits. So how do we find out and then how do we influence where that goes?
Right, so you'll be very happy to learn that Brian Oakley and Nate Vinatiero have a proposal that has also been pre-approved but has not yet been funded to the Rhode Island Sea Grant to start to do what I'm calling a sand budget for Block Island. Where are the sources, where are the sinks, and how does it move around? And they called it something else, but it's basically a sand. That's exactly what they're looking for. And what I like to say, Jody, is that the very sand on which you are sitting today was in a bluff yesterday. And so bluff erosion is our main source of sand for the beaches. And so whatever actions we take in the future, we need to take that into account.
One of the things that I observed is that the re-engineering of the Green Jetty in Old Harbor, when I was growing up here, the water would hit that and it would go straight up.
Right.
Now it comes over.
Right.
And I'm assuming that has a lot to do with how much more sand is there and how it's being starved off of the Baby Beach side in that area. And the removal of the groins that were historically on that part of the beach up to State Beach are gone.
Right.
And that we're seeing how this sand moves around. I'm just fascinated to know the mechanics of it,
Right.
how that-
The people who live right across from Doyen, right next to Solviken, yeah, they're very interested. Doyon. That couple is very interested. They watch it all the time, and they're very communicative about what they're seeing and stuff. So they would be good people for you to talk to about that. Yeah. But Brian and yeah.
Monday on the first.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's really, yeah.
Doesn't that release project also look at current?
I have a question before we.
Yeah. Okay. He used to be the Rhode Island State geologist, but he's now at Eastern Connecticut State. Yes. Yes. And yes. Yes, absolutely. And and he's come. The other thing that Nigel just whispered in my ear, reminded me that Annette Grilly, who's a URI professor, is modeling the ocean component of what's going on off of Crescent Beach.
Currents.
Currents, that's correct. Yes. Yep. Exactly. So we've got hopefully good research going on to help us make some tough decisions in the future. Yeah. Jean-Louis, you had one more thing for the good of group?
What is the process for us as the committee when somebody from the island come over like you do and tell us, oh, this pond is going to be gone in few, like, what do we do? What do you do? Like
nothing.
We do not.
We're advisory, so we don't do anything except advise. And if it was, from a town perspective, I mean, you got to get some energy up around it. And, are there town assets that are in danger of being impacted, or is it just, if it's just aesthetic, then there, what maybe we don't do anything.
But because it could be different kind of case. Sometimes it could be
right. That's right.
It could be public, private,
right.
Could be aesthetic, could be technical. What do? We just I don't know. I'd like to know what we do.
Well, you have private property, you have public property, you have all these different methods. I mean, it's hard to say. The people who don't bring us.
For us.
Right. Exactly.
And they just some extensive research on it about 15 years ago. Free to find a report, and they
Good.
said,
Let it go.
okay, just like the pond.
Yeah, the one up on
Yep.
Rock Island is going down.
Yeah, that's right. We live on an eroding glacial nugget. Anyway, I'm going to entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved?
A second?
Yep.
Any discussion?
Nope.
All in favor indicate by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. 3,